Hey everyone, my name is Dimitri. I'm a current VCE English language tutor and also owner of tutoring agency learnmate.com.au. So the point of this video today is I'm going to be giving you my holiday preparation checklist of what you should be doing these holidays for English language. So first of all, before we even go into the holiday checklist, I just want to firstly explain the ethic that's required. Do well in VCE. When I've spoken to many tutors who have got 99 ATARs and 98, 97, anywhere around that vicinity, you always find that what is allowing them to do well is the work ethic and the enjoyment of each subject. So if you don't like the subjects you're doing this year, you're not going to put the work in and therefore you're not going to get the result that you want. So with that being said, make sure that the subjects you're doing next year, you find passion in each of them and you find enjoyment. And also do not forget to work hard. Okay, now with that out of the way, I'd also like to briefly talk about the changes to the study design next year. Many students have told me that they're a bit concerned about the changes to the study design next year. And to be honest, I've had a look through it. There are very few changes to it. It's not great. Basically, the changes that include additional meta-language to the meta-language list. That's number one. That's probably the biggest thing I noticed. And number two, some new content. Content like positive and negative face needs, also meta-linguistic terms like archaisms, and they're also making aware more meta-language that previously wasn't so aware on the other study design. Things like jargon, things like positive and negative face needs. This stuff really wasn't that apparent in the previous study design, so now in the new study design for 2016 to 2020, they've made this more apparent. So with that being said, make sure you do go through the new study design and make sure you understand all the meta-linguistic terms. Now this actually presents a really good segue into the next part of what you should be doing these holidays. So these holidays, I'd be focusing on defining and giving examples for every single meta-linguistic term that is on the 3-4 study design. Basically, I tell all students the meta-language is the foundation for every single section in the exam, as well as also your SACs too. So the short answer section, the analytical commentary, and the essay section are all predicated on meta-language. So that's your first task these holidays, is to define every single one of those terms and also give examples. The reason I ask that you give examples is because many students can define meta-language, but they can't give the examples. So you need to be focusing on defining it, understanding it, and also being able to identify it in a text. So give yourself, find practice pieces and try test yourself finding a meta-language and actually within the actual text. Okay, next thing I'd advise that you guys do is to also go through the Green Book. Now, the Green Book is by Kirsten Fox. It is a fantastic resource. It is like the Bible for English language after the actual textbook. So go through this, complete practice pieces, but particularly on the holidays, focus more on having a look at the sample responses in the back of the book. Kirsten Fox does a great job of giving A+ responses in the back of the book for analytical commentaries, essays, and even short answer questions. Go through all these, read them, understand them. You've got to understand that exposure is key to doing well in English language. If you expose yourself to A+ writing and know what it actually looks like, you can therefore replicate that in your SACs and exam. If you don't know what an A+ response looks like, how in the world do you think you're going to actually write it? So exposure is key. Read that book these holidays. That will give you a good solid foundation. Okay, and lastly, start to build your quotations and examples list. Now this might be quite hard in the holidays because you're not too familiar with the actual content. So if you're not familiar with the content, you probably can't identify things in the real world. But if you see anything in the real world that stands out to you, that seems quite unusual, usually there'll be a linguistic reason behind it, and that might be relevant for your quotations list. So with that being said, go through my quotes list, go through all my examples, all my articles that I've written on VCEstudyguides.com over the space of the year. Have a look at all the examples that I've given for past students for 2015 and try and source some inspiration for that. Maybe try and find where those other examples exist in the real world for other different examples. So that would be my advice for quotes and examples. So again, this leads me to my next piece of advice, which is to go through VCEstudyguides.com and read all my articles. I've written a lot of articles this year, usually one or every 2 weeks I write an article and I post it on there consistently since the start of the year. So go through that, read all of them, understand the content. Basically, these holidays you should be focusing on setting the foundation for next year. So you don't want to be going back to school on day one, having no idea of meta language. You want to be going back to school on day one next year with knowledge of all meta language, knowledge of some quotes and examples, and also knowing what an A+ response looks like for all the 3 sections of the exam. And if you do that, I guarantee that you'll set yourself up for a really good study score in 2016. Thanks, guys.